This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
It is ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Welcome into the show. It's a good old Monday. We hope you enjoyed your weekend, but we are back on a regular scheduled program Monday through Friday like we always are. We always want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And always remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure once you're done listening and you start feeling yourself like, oh my God, these people are so great. Jarvis and Tenitra are the best in the world. Make sure you put that in writing and give us a 5-star review. And we would really appreciate it so everybody else can figure out what we got going on right here down in Locked On Sports Atlanta. We appreciate you so much. So we got a lot coming up today. All right, we're going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons. Over the weekend, you know, they had the OTAs. We were out there live. So that means conversations about position battles. I know you love it. I know you couldn't wait to actually get to that. And I think Tenitra made a very interesting thing that she pointed out. We're going to talk about it and tell you exactly what that was coming up in just a second. And also, the Braves, they are still undefeated, and it's June. In the month of June, oh my gosh, what is going on? I'm starting to get excited, but we're gonna talk about it before I get a little bit too excited to you. You're gonna have to hold me down because you know I'm starting to feel these Atlanta Braves right now. And last but not least, these first two games of the NBA Finals got me to thinking, and I was like, you know what? How should the Hawks prioritize their offseason? Should they go offensive? Should they go defensive? It got me to thinking a little bit. So we'll talk about that and for the culture. But first, we have to talk about the Atlanta Falcons. Like we talked about on Friday about some observations that we had, and you know, got a lot of good feedback from that. And I think the main thing right now is I thought was very interesting when you brought it up to me. You pointed out and started talking about, you know, a position battle that kind of caught your eye. And I think it's interesting because we know what Caleb McGarry is, right? Yes. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option, and he is essentially the starter right now at that right tackle position. But I think you brought up an interesting name that could potentially have McGarry in a position battle with this guy. What say you?
Yeah, so as we're taking a look and kind of like you said, observing what we're seeing, because we had an opportunity to peek into an open practice on Friday for literally about 75 minutes, just kind of seeing things shift around. So at one point, thought it was interesting because, of course, you've got Marcus Mariota working one half of the field, and then you've got Desmond Ridder working the other half of the field. So we're scanning down and kind of looking to see who's on that right side. And I see Chris Lindstrom. I do not see Caleb McGarry. I do see Jermaine Ifedi. And I thought to myself, just what you said. I said, well, we know one is a proven commodity, and we know potentially what that ceiling is. Because, again, we give Caleb McGarry a lot of credit for what looks like a lot of offseason work that he put in to get his body right. And
he's changed his body. You're right.
Exactly.
Yep.
When you change that body, you change the mind. It kind of all works together. So Jarvis and I here on ATL Day Ones, we're always mindful of the fact that let's see what this new look Caleb McGarry is going to be able to do. However, it did not get lost on me that Ifedi was starting next to Lindstrom on that Mariota side, because right now, even though it's early on, Mariota is still technically one on the depth chart. So if you're over there working with the ones, we were already going to keep our eye on it. That's already one of the position battles that Jarvis and I have been talking about and will continue to talk about, especially when we get into training camp. Just thought it was interesting that we saw that at this stage of the offseason workouts.
No doubt about it, because at the end of the day, like you know, it's going to be a lot of rotations going on, right? Yeah. It's going to be a lot of people being put in that situation. And like I said, it's not necessarily mean they're going to start, but you want to see what it looks like. What does Jermaine Ifedi look like playing next to Chris Lindstrom? Because hey, that's not too out of sight, out of mind to be able to say, you know what? there may be a time may come where we might have to play Jermaine Ifedi, whether
Yes.
Caleb McGarry gets hurt or he's just still playing like the Caleb McGarry that we know him to be.
Yes.
And that's unacceptable as a first round pick. He's played in a very unacceptable way, and I think that they're going to probably try to do everything they possibly can to push him and or unseat him when it comes to that. I think another thing though, T, that I kind of been kind of intrigued by, right? We know Cordell Patterson has not been at voluntary workouts,
Yes.
and Arthur Smith has gone on the record and saying, it's not a big deal. We understand it. It's voluntary. He doesn't have to be here.
And he's a veteran.
And I think it's safe to say that he's RB1, right?
Agreed.
But Cordell Patterson's RB1. I think that's locked in. But I think that we have to kind of change some of the verbiage when we talk about RB2 or RB3. I think when we talk about the running back position and what those guys are going to have to do and going right now and for mandatory minicamps and going into training camp is they're going to be battling for touches.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to be a guy where, this guy, he's starter, RB2, RB3, third down running back. No, I don't think it's going to be. It's going to be these guys are going to be constantly in a battle to get touches. And I think Tyler Algier, he's going to be a part of that. Damian Williams, he was getting some work with the first group when they were practicing. Like I said, I make sure I emphasize that they were practicing and they were rotating in. He was the first running back in position, right? When they went out there. So I don't think that says something, right? Because I think we're at a point where the running backs is going to be a very interesting battle because, like you said, Damian Williams, and we talk about Avery Williams as well, and him moving to that position. So this is a room that's pretty crowded, T.
Yes. And I'm going to ask you to do a favor. I never ask you this, but I got to ask you because there's this point that I want to make that you and I used to chuckle about all the time, and actually many folks on the Falcons beat. Recall last year and in years past, and I know his name is Brian. I'm just having a brain freeze on his last name. But remember the running back who we all said would win training camp? Like if there was a running back, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
If winning training camp was a person, it would have been him. And he did do better last season in terms of his run production and his pass protection. I promise you guys, come back in the second segment and this brain freeze that I'm having, I promise you're going to remember who it is. But my point
Brian Hill.
There, see? I
Yeah.
got that Brian part
Practice
right.
warrior.
See, you can tell that
He looks amazing in practice.
If winning training camp was a person, dude would have the trophy, right? But you can tell Jarvis and I have been doing this for years because all I had to do was say Brian and boom, he came back 30 seconds later with Hill when he knows I'm having a brain freeze. But yes, Brian Hill was the king of training camp and the king of off-season OTAs, you name it, B. Hill was doing it. Now, to give B. Hill credit, last year he did improve his game both in his run productivity as well as pass catching. So got to give him credit where credit is due. But what Jarvis is saying is this. When you start looking at those preseason games, right, and you start seeing who's getting those touches, that's when you want to really hone in on seeing, okay, is that the person who's maybe proven to Arthur Smith that he's the guy who's going to punch it in the areas where they needed it the most? Even during the Arthur Smith regime year one, of course, several years back in the Dan Quinn era, it was that red zone. Could not get a back that could punch it in the low red zone. Could not get a back that on a third and short you could count on. You're out here getting Matt Ryan to pass for half a yard, 1 yard, and literally not able to just stretch the field and continue a drive. So that's why you make a great point about the fact that other than CP being RB1, we're not about 2 and 3. We're about seeing who's going to get quality touches and quality touches. That's going to dictate what that depth chart looks like for that running back room.
It's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, like you said, because Caleb McGarry, he's on his way out, so they need to have at least a contingency plan in place. And I think Jermaine Ifedi, I think both of us agree that Jermaine Ifedi might just be that. All right, now the Atlanta Dream. They were able to get it done, T. 75-66. Nia Coffey leading the way with 16 points.
Yes.
You know how it goes down in College Park. The Atlanta Dream get it done once again.
Once again, it is crazy what they're able to do. And granted, they have had the Fever's number all season long, but they started off a little bit slower than normal, just in terms of being able to get a rhythm, especially on the outside, right? But they truly embody defense leads to offense. And the defense was right there. It was team defense. It was consistent. They were not allowing for much in the way of second chance points, but that's what led to that second half, that amazing offense. Like you said, Nia Coffey with her double-double, but also Ryan Howard started heating up in that second half because,
Shocking.
right, exactly. Believe it or not, they took the lead into halftime, the Dream did, and hadn't hit a three. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, she comes out, she shoots and hits 7 of their first 11 points, and then it's pretty much game from there. So, again, great to see what the Dream were able to do in getting another win and getting a win over the Fever. And believe it or not, it's the beginning of June, and they're one win away from how many wins they have for the entire season last year. So they are already winning by a long stretch compared to what you saw this year, and surprising a lot of folks with what they're doing.
All right, and they're going to try to continue to win tomorrow against the Seattle Storm. It's going to be out there on the West Coast, so it's a little bit of a late start. So 10 o'clock, so make sure you check those guys out because, like you said, the Atlanta Dream have been doing their thing. All right, last but not least, T, the Warriors, Celtics, they're able to get it done 107-88, and they come back and tie up the series. I think it's safe to say that the Warriors got it done in the third quarter, right?
Yeah.
And Steph Curry was at the helm.
They looked good in the third quarter, in the beginning of the third quarter, in game one. What they figured out this time is what you're not going to do is let the Celtics look better in the third quarter and then look better in the fourth quarter and dictate
blow you out the water in fourth quarter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this time, yes, Jason Tatum, got off to actually a better start in this game 2 versus game 1. Jaylen Brown was lights out that first half, right? So they're looking like the same Celtics. The Warriors took a little while to heat up, only took a 2-point lead into halftime. But like you said, Jarvis, they looked like patented, trademark, vintage Warriors in that third quarter. But it all starts, and we are going to talk more about this in For the Culture, but it all starts with defense. Your defense leads to your offense when it gets deep into the postseason at this stage of the game. And that took everybody. And listen, Draymond Green didn't have the greatest of games last night, but it was the fact that he was in spaces and places and making sure those guys stayed where they were. Andre Iguodala didn't even dress out last night. And he said, hey, play our game. We know what our game looks like. And then players that you and I had kind of called out a little bit, Jordan Poole, understanding you got to give some offense. Kevon Looney bringing a defense, Kevon Looney bringing a little bit, and Gary Payton II. I'm just going to stop right there.
He's going to be a free agent. He's going to be a free agent.
Right there. Because notice there's a theme with Jarvis and me. We keep talking about defense leading to offense.
We will talk about that in For the Culture, like you said. But coming up next, though, T, how can the Braves stay undefeated in the month of June? We'll talk about that next on ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta.